from a rescuer position. Hey, why don't you try this? Or here's what you need to do. Do I look like I care? No, I'm totally about getting personal gain out of that. And we've actually recoined it. We've coined a nickname for this, and it's called non-consensual helping. Think about it. I got 3 daughters. I don't know if anyone out there listening has daughters or kids, but the word non-consensual, normally when we hear it, we're talking about something pretty scary for a dad.
Absolutely.
And I've been paying attention to the words that people say, leaders say to their employees and to or teachers say to their students or coaches say to their kids when they're rescuing, and they start sentences with "here, why don't you?" or "here's what you need to do," or "I know you say no, but trust me, you're going to thank me later." That's the same stuff that boyfriends say to their girlfriends in the backseat of the car.
Yeah.
And it turns into date rape.
Yeah.
So when you start a sentence with "here, let me show you," "trust me," "I know what's best for you," that's non-consensual helping, and it violates a really basic, I think, human dignity of self-determination. And so our whole thing is don't help someone without their permission. I mean, I'm not talking 911 calls. I'm talking about in general life. Get consent before you try to fix somebody or help somebody.
And even asking people to do that. Hey, are you asking me for advice?
Mm-hmm.
Are you asking me to help you?
Yeah.
Are you giving me permission to tell you what I'm really thinking, not what the canned answer is going to be from whatever position I'm coming from because of my defaults, but really have a conversation with you of value that's probably going to be uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, that's what compassion is. Compassion is we're in this together. So if I don't have your permission, we're not doing this together. I'm trying to do it to you.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone can relate to what it's like to try to help someone without their consent. You get resistance or you get compliance, but you know that we're not in it together.
Yeah. Well, in work dynamics, you know, you have bosses, employees, and you know, the systems that have existed for, I don't know, 70, 80 plus years. I mean, it's been, that hierarchy's been there longer than that. But really in the culture and the systems that we've created, you know, you have this hierarchy and you have managers and middle managers and people get put in interesting positions. And you talk about those relationships and let me show you and let me help you. And you have people that are not really trained in that way in certain positions. You have one that came in on your book, an example of a gal who came into an organization where there was some conflicts, and they actually let your team go because of some of the drama that was intertwined, that she was kind of jockeying for position basically, and not understanding how to come in together with you guys. She wanted to show that she was in charge, and I understand how that could happen very easily. I would be suspect for that in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, you ended up coming back to that company. Can you explain a little bit more about how that works with work? Hierarchies? No,
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's this thing called the Peter Principle, and it's part of this whole kind of industrial hierarchical system that you brought up. And the Peter Principle basically says we will promote people to their level of incompetence. The better you do, the better someone does, so we promote them and we keep doing it until they fail. And they fail because we promote them because of what they did in their previous position. We don't promote them because they have what it takes to do the next thing. And so a very typical thing we see in companies is people that are really good problem solvers, really good at operating this machine, or really good painters, they're made the boss because, hey, you know this job, so we're going to put you in charge of all the people that do it.
Right.
And what they don't say is, so you can show them how. And so now this new boss thinks that their only job is to tell everybody how to do their job and to show everybody how they do it. And why would they think any different? That's why they were promoted. Except what we forget is that people want to learn and grow and make mistakes and figure it out and work together with their boss to feel more capable and competent, not to be told how to do it and rescued every day. So that is one of the number one things we train leaders on, is how to stop rescuing and how to start being a resource, so that you can partner with your people so that they become more capable, more confident, more independent, so they don't need you.
Right.
And most leaders were never trained and we're not warned that this is what's going on.
Right.
Is there ever a point when it's just too late? You can't, there's no turning back from that train. when you get to that point where you're too much of a rescuer in that role.
Yeah, there is, and that's something that we can help employers figure out before they promote somebody. Is this person just kind of hell bent on rescuing, and that's their MO, or are they truly just don't know and just are open to being trained on how to lead? And so we have lots of success stories of leaders that really say, "Oh wow, yeah, I had good intentions, unintended consequences," and so they can change their approach and watch their people shine.
When you come to, or when you get the call from a company, is it to the point where they are self-aware and it's maybe too late, or where does that, in that spectrum, where do you get that phone call?
Oh man, it'd be great if everybody that called us was so enlightened and self-aware, and they knew where they needed to grow and they were willing to do the hard work.
Yeah.
But something I figured out a long time ago when I was at doing clinical psychology, doing therapy work, is that people don't come to us because they want to change. They come to us because they want the suffering to go away. And so that is where we meet people, is here's the suffering. How do you understand the suffering? How do you make sense of it? Where do you want to be? How do you want to feel in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? And then we start getting into it. Some people, once they realize what's involved, don't want to do it. Some people are just amazing at their resilience and their courage to just keep peeling that onion back and making changes and watching life change for them.
Yeah, when I first went to my the first therapist appointment that I had, I was wanting to justify my life and my feelings.
Yeah.
And that was my first initial MO. And honestly, the first therapist went along with me for a while.
You're looking for a drama ally.
Yeah.
And if you can find one, that's awesome.
They were all about it with me.
Yeah, you feel better without changing.
And then serendipity happens. God looks out for me. I ended up with I call them the real deal. I saw two different people since then, and they're both amazing fits for me, and just a female and a male. And I love their perspectives, because they both come at me with different things, and they're very strong, but they don't let me wallow in my stuff. They don't allow my ego to get the best of my situations. They just put it to me straight, and I really appreciate that about them.
And I'm guessing that you and other people who have had those people in their lives, those people treated you with three things. They gave you their respect in three ways. They treated you as if you were worthwhile. They treated you as if you were capable, and they treated you as if you were accountable.
Absolutely.
And so when I'm worthwhile, I'm worth putting effort into myself. When I'm capable, I can learn and grow and change. And when I'm accountable, I know that I live in relationships and community, and my actions have consequences for myself and for other people. And so when we've met somebody that was just that amazing presence, it's because all three of those were present.
Yeah. That's great. And the hours of work it takes for them to get that good at their craft, and I'm sure all the practicing at the beginning, because they have to learn too. We all have to learn somewhere.
Yeah.
I was just grateful that I ran into their chair when they had established. I could tell a lot of goodies, and I'm still trying to catch up. I'm learning a ton from them. At least once a month.
That's great.
I get to have a tune-up, is what I call it.
Was there a company that when you walked in that it was like your unicorn coming in, and they were just amazing at what they do, and their culture was there? Was there any certain type of company that you would walk into and see that?
There is one, and they were amazing not because they did it all right, but because they were willing to learn and grow. And that company, Casa Controls, and their CEO, Dan Stutterheim, is a phenomenal leader, not because he had it all figured out, but because he was willing to be vulnerable and learn and grow. He just presented at our Compassion Accountability Summit, and his story almost brought me to tears. I've been part of this journey with them, but I didn't appreciate what it takes for a leader to become vulnerable and become humble, and to realize I'm trying with my best intention and it's not working. And so I got to be the one to change first. Yeah. And so, they called us and said, we want to be a great place to work. They were willing to invest time and energy and money, and they did everything we asked them. And then the leader got to a point where he is like, I can't be the expert. I can't be the sole person to make this all happen. I got to give up control, let them start to own it. And he was willing to look at his own stuff, and did some amazing things, and they're thriving now.
That's huge. Okay, there was a section that stuck out to me, and I had to stop and write this down, and then I had lost it, and I found it again. So this is the second time around. But as an innovator, somebody that's in a space that doesn't really exist, the jobs that we've been a part of for the last 8 or 9 years didn't exist 5 years ago the way they're put together today. This is new territory. And so we're hiring new people, right, from out of college, and they think we have all the answers. But
until a week later when they think they have all the answers.
Oh, absolutely. Because they find out that
that's not a fair stereotype. There's some amazing millennials and young people coming out.
Absolutely. Well, actually, I have a lot of empathy for their situation, and I can't imagine having grown up in the constant change and evolution that they've had to grow up in, because they're digital natives. And I'm in a position where I was just ahead of that, where I understand both pieces, and I had to grow through and learn the digital side, which I love. I'm almost obsessed with it because of all the dynamics that follow it. And it just works for my brain and how I function. But there was this one thing where you said false belief that enough information will eliminate all risk. And that's exactly what you said, because I wanted to get it right, because your wording is very specific for 1,000 reasons we won't get into right now. And then the other piece of it for me, which is the part that punched me in the gut because of how I choose to live, is a false belief that innovation can solve any problem. So you took me from one pinnacle and I'm like, and then you got me on this. I was like, you know, but it's so true. And that kind of tells me about how you balance things in conversation and with people. Can you dive into that a little bit more about those two extremes?
Yeah, that's where I was talking about that in the book. I was talking about how we move from practicing resourcefulness to moving to persistence. And they're both very important parts of life. And persistence is about making a decision, following through on a commitment, not overcomplicating things, doing what you say you were going to do, enforcing your boundaries, walking the talk. Resourcefulness is about innovation, problem solving, figuring stuff out. But we can get stuck if we try to overuse one of these. And my personality is particularly vulnerable to trying to logically figure out fear and risk and grief and sadness and loss. And so there is an aspect of our existence that is not, it can't be figured out. It can't be risk managed. And so that's why I easily can get into the position where I think, man, if I just had more information, if I just think this through, if I just get 2 more consultants to tell me, I'll do 3 more Google searches, then there will be no fear of making a decision. And it's never there. I mean, how many of us ever jumped off the diving board for the first time and had no fear because we figured it all out first? It just ain't there.
Well, you know, and this brings up a good point too, because I remember as a child and little children, where does that fear come from? Because when you're little, you're pretty much fearless in a lot of part, and then something happens, something clicks in their mind. That now jumping off the diving board is this scary change that I just can't overcome. And I see that with a lot of climbers that I climb with that are younger. Women especially are wonderful finessing climbers that don't have that fear as much as the older folks do. And I just don't know where that comes from. Is it a wiring?
Great question. I would I haven't thought a lot about that, but I have 2 hypotheses.
Yeah.
First one is that people are made different. We're all different personalities. You know, there's always that one kid that can just is a risk taker and can jump off the high dive and makes it look so easy. So then he thinks everyone else can do it and shouldn't be afraid. Or that one person that went cold turkey off of smoking and thinks everybody should just quit and like it's that easy. So we project our own stuff onto other people as if everyone should do it. I think that's one problem. We don't realize everybody experiences life differently. The other thing is something happens where we underplay or downgrade how important emotions are. Like, what's wrong with being afraid? Why can't I be afraid and jump off a diving board? Why do I have to not be afraid first? And so we don't embrace the kind of courage of being afraid and doing it anyways. Or it's okay to be scared. It doesn't make you weak. It just means we're here for you. Like, what if all the little kids in the pool, instead of saying, you can do it, jump, 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 what if they said, it is scary. I've been on that diving board, and guess what? We're all going to be here for you when you come out of the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we don't, that's why compassion is so needed right now, is we got to be there with each other through the hard stuff, not try to make it us against them.
You know, that's huge. I studied Navy SEALs for years and years because of a lot of reasons, and I'm intrigued by them and their lifestyles and what they choose to do.
Yeah.
One, real quick back to that, I'm complete opposite. I want to innovate. Everything can be fixed.
Yep.
Let's just get in and get dirty and we'll figure it out, and that's not healthy. I need people like yourself on my team saying, bro, hold up. I need that, and I understand that, and I'm grateful that I understand that, because I didn't always.
Yeah.
But I study Navy SEALs, and these are some of the baddest people on the planet. They choose a tough life, and they choose to do what they do. And when they go through their training, and they have a culture that they've created and refined over many, many, many years, and they have lots of experienced people that continue to refine this culture that they've built. And the best of the best that walk into rooms knowing they can die. They say, if you're not afraid, something's wrong with you.
Right.
Because they're all afraid. And they make it okay in their community. That fear is a good thing. It keeps you alert. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you aware. And they have their mantras that they embrace fear. It's
and
not
community. They
That's
embrace supporting each other, and that no one is an island. No one can do it by themselves, and you need each other. So absolutely. They're in touch with their emotions. They're not cold. They can do some pretty amazing stuff, but it's not because they're cold-hearted and sociopathic.
Right.
It's because they're fully real.
Well, their compassion for each other and for what they believe is intense, and what they do for each other as that community's getting out to the civilian world, and their suicide rates and how high they are, and how they're choosing to take care of each other now. They're putting this together, and they're building more systems. We've been at war for a crazy amount of time.
Yeah.
Never before have we been at war this long, and these guys are in it all the time.
Right.
They're in the forefront all the time. They're on 400 missions. Some of these guys been on 400 missions, and stepping out into this world, and then all of a sudden that train keeps going, and they're not there no more.
Yeah.
And they feel left out, and they don't have purpose, and all these things, and their suicide rate's almost unbelievable.
Right.
But they're coming together, and they're helping each other, and they're building programs and systems to support each other through that.
Yeah.
And I just think they're amazing people. And yes, they have to do some horrific things, I think, as they're doing their jobs, as they kind of compartmentalize that part of their life. Well, and I don't understand that world, right? But I do have a hint of why they do it, of just from reading and studying them and listening to them talk. But kind of getting into our next segment, I want to bring in some real life community stuff that's happening here in Harvey County.
Yes.
So you bring all these experiences and all this knowledge, and your book is fantastic. I am blown away again that you're a resource right here locally. And off the cuff, there's some conversations we've had, and your name came up. So I'm going to talk to you about that later. I know you'll shoot me straight if you don't want to be a part of. It's not a long-term thing. It's just an event coming in. By the way, real quick, how did the summit go?
Amazing. We had hoped to get 50 people. We had 130. Had to switch to another room.
Sweet.
And it was awesome.
The last I heard it was at 90. So I knew that was a
130.
Good
We filled it up.
Ended up with 130. So you blew out the room, and the speakers were amazing. Big hitters coming from all over, just great. And you worked with all these people in some way, shape, or form?
In some way. Two of the speakers, or one of the speakers, came to me through LinkedIn. Actually, just read my book, and one day contacted me and said, "I'm using your book in training law enforcement officers to try to be social emotionally healthy, because the casualties of doing that work is so high." And so we started a relationship, and next thing you know, he's here, police chief, talking about how he practices compassion to help police officers reduce suicide rates.
And a police chief, so he's leading from the top.
Oh yeah,
with this, and
he's been there,
and it's working through the system.
Oh yeah.
And the things they have to go through. I'm kidding. Every day that they say that when a police officer pulls you over or deals with somebody, it's usually one of the worst days of their life, and they do this in repetition, multiples. That's unbelievable. So back to a local level. We don't want to get specifics, and I'll just say for me, and I'm not putting you on this, and this is my opinion. I've talked to all the candidates, and I like all of them. I don't agree with all of them on everything. as I don't want them to agree with me on everything that I believe, and they shouldn't, because they bring flavor to my life, some of them more than others. That's how we are. But to see good men being torn down in our community, and for people not to understand the process of how it works. We've been talking about these mailers, and me and Kevin had this little deal going where Kevin started bringing these mailers in, and we were putting one on this side of the ping pong table and putting that on the other side of the ping pong table. And it was funny. We didn't know how to react at first because we know all the parties.
Yeah.
And then it became kind of upsetting for both. Because, this is being said over here and people don't know, well, what did you check on your box? You're only getting these type of mailers. All these manipulation tactics that are happening right now at a high level, all coming from Topeka, really, and the groups that surround that. These are our guys, man. They're two of our best. They stepped up. They're choosing to step up. They're doing the best they can. They both have value. They both bring strengths at that level. And then we got 3 on the next level that all have all the same stuff. They have different backgrounds and traits and experiences that are all super valuable, and they're stepping up saying, bring it on. I want to take part in this process.
Yeah.
And I'm super proud of all of them for doing that. But when you can't control the stream of media that's coming into our community, can you talk to me a little bit about your perspective on that with all the trainings you've done?
Yeah.
I know it's a little different genre, right?
No, this is absolutely relevant because I know these people.
Yeah.
I've worked with these people. I know how passionate they are about making a difference in the world. I know the differences they've already made in their communities. I know their resumes, and these are qualified people. And I know that they have some fundamentally different philosophies about how we get to where we want to be and how we make life better. And what I see in my own community is that the cancer of fear-mongering and the cancer of justification has made it from Washington right into Newton. It's here. And it is the first thing we see. I was reading through a whole bunch of leaflets that you have from all different parties and all different candidates. I have to struggle to find out what they actually want and what they believe in. It's easy to see all of the bad things about their opponents. I see that everywhere.
Right.
But it takes a lot of work to find out what they're about, what they want to do, what they believe in, what matters. And so this goes back to justification. What I see is a ton of energy being spent to seek justification, not to be effective.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's some sort of the strategy of a lot of these campaigns is the amount of content. Whoever has the most content wins in this case. And so that justification of how much we can push out to bury the other message is really, I think, their overall strategy, no matter if it's right or wrong or indifferent.
Yeah.
Not arguing the point if it's truth or not. It's I just want to bury their message point blank.
And here's the science behind it. Fear is what's being mongered. It's what's being peddled. And fear, we know that the human brain, when it's afraid, the prefrontal cortex, the clear thinking part of the brain, shuts down, and survival kicks in. And survival mode does not see the forest for the trees. Survival mode cannot distinguish what's true and what's not true. Survival mode only notices those few things that help me stay alive. And so the more I can scare somebody into what the opposite candidate is going to do to hurt you, the more I can shut down their clear thinking brain.
Wow.
And when I shut down their clear thinking brain, they'll believe whatever I say. And so it's very strategic scientifically. And that results in people making terrible decisions and making decisions based on whatever very limited scope of information I want to give them. And then we can play up on it even more by in our digital world now. We used to all sit around the TV watching one newscast. Everybody heard the same thing. Yeah. Now I can customize the information that I get to completely justify me. I can pick a news station that I agree with. I can pick whatever I want.
That's right.
So I can customize reality now to play to my reptilian brain, confirm all my fears about all the people that I've been told are bad.
That's right.
And then get progressively out of touch with reality and delusional. But I'm more and more convinced that I'm right.
You are right. that's happening. And you are right that people get locked in this state. And I think we're going to go into layer 2 here in a bit that we talked about. Because a couple things that I wanted to make sure we talked about for the community also to understand and learn. Whoever listens to this podcast this long, this is really important. We can take snippets and clips because I want people to understand that these candidates are good people.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would sign off on this stuff or not. I can say probably not, but I don't know that. Okay. But I know that they're not sending these things out, and most people, 90%, I think, because I'm pretty close to the process, don't understand that. And it's like, there's this guy sending this and this guy sending that. And because people have addresses, they know what box you check. So you're going to get media to support or hurt the other opposition. And they just hope their numbers are better than the other guy. And it's a numbers game, and it goes out. And so there's some footwork that's done on a local level. But at the end of the day, these guys, I would like just a strong debate on stuff.
Yeah.
I would like for outside influences not to tear us apart on our home base. I would like for some kind of legislation to be in place where freedom of speech is very important, and that's everything for us. But there's also another place where there's defamation of character, and there has to be a balance between how do you insinuate that this is coming from somebody when they don't want that out there.
Well,
on both sides.
I think we lost all the ideals you mentioned.
Yeah,
I agree with. I think those were lost about 2 years ago in our country. I haven't seen anyone in top leadership actually talk about those for a long time. We do at a local level, and we want it. And I can't even imagine how hard it is to be these candidates. You got to have the thickest skin to go into this business. I mean, you asked me earlier about politics. I'm like, I can't imagine it. I respect the heck out of these people because you have to be so thick-skinned. You have to be so passionate about pushing for what you want. And they're being misrepresented.
Yeah.
People are speaking on their behalf. So in some sense, when you buy in, and particularly in our country, if you are aligned with a political party, it's like all of a sudden, all this stuff happens. You can't just be you.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. And at the same time, they're participating in this. They're part of it.
Yeah, you're
and,
right.
And if they're not speaking out and saying that this is not me, I don't agree with what's being said, they're part of the problem.
Yeah.
And so I feel the pain of being in this situation. I can't imagine any of the candidates want to be seen as fear-mongering, hate-mongering. So that's terribly tough. We want to know about what do you really want, and learn about you as a person. And
humanizing people. And so what Harvey County Digital began is we began because we wanted to take local leaders and humanize people, because we see a lot more of that happening than ever before. And to go up against the stream, we just have to create a channel that has an ability to bring on Nate when maybe 3 people don't like you, but 1,000 people love you. But for some reason, the 3 people are really loud right now.
That's a message I want to send out to the parties, the politicians. It's like, do you realize we are experiencing the casualties in our homes?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a hard battle.
Well, in organizations and in businesses, and we have had some good conversations in here because we are approached by a lot of things, and we wanted to have meetings with everybody, and then some of those meetings weren't able to be published because we didn't want to seem one way or the other. But at the end of the day, it's so deep that people feel like they have to protect themselves and are paranoid because of the way it is. And I just feel so bad that they have to subject themselves to that level of paranoia and that lifestyle, not realizing that our job wasn't to make anybody look bad. It was to give voices to everybody because we want to humanize everybody. And at the end of the day, when I don't totally agree with somebody, but I agree with 70% of what they say, I'm good with that. And you can teach me some stuff, man. And my discipline for me is to make sure I get that voice out there instead of counteracting and not getting it out, because now I'm fighting my own monster. Right? I don't want to feed that. And so to do that, I have to do the complete opposite of what my natural instincts would be. And to not have an ability to do that was kind of hard for us as a company, for me as a person. But as this process has continued to go through and more has come out, I totally understand at a higher level of why some decisions were made and why we weren't able to publish some interviews and things. I get it now. And it actually hurts my heart to realize that that's where we're at. It is what it is. I'm not going to change it by myself. But thank you for covering and helping me cover that. And it feels like we have the same sentiment.
And I don't know who you're talking about. So this is,
what
I don't want to.
Does,
I don't want
but,
to.
Yeah.
But what I see, and I feel so sad about this, is that we so see that fear is the most dangerous thing.
Yeah.
The only thing we have to fear is fear, and we've heard this a long time. Fear is what's driving it, not the desire to be effective.
That's it.
And there's such a big line between being passionate and being paranoid.
Mm-hmm. How do we get past that? Do we stop engaging in that conversation to move us forward as a community or a society? Or how do you think that could be? Do we eliminate social media altogether? How do you think we can move forward?
Andy had it right. We stop talking and start listening. Mm-hmm. And we just listen.
And I think we become okay with all sides. You can't sabotage your foundation, right?
Sure.
But you can still stand on your foundation and still care about somebody and say, well, that's just one thing I don't agree with you on. And I think tacking it, and for me, it's doing this right now. It's having the conversation, even if we don't agree fully on how we view it, other than it's okay to have the conversation. Right. We need to have the conversation. Now I know where you stand, and we don't agree on everything. And one of the things that I appreciate about you, and we've talked about this, is you bring a perspective to me that I wouldn't have if you wouldn't push back. And because of our positions and the things we do out in the world, you find less and less people doing it when it's more critical for you to have those people to do that for you, which is to give you that constructive criticism and feedback where you can step back. And even if you don't agree, you can still bank it as that's a real feeling that other people may have too.
Well, in the book, there's a section where I talk about the 6 emotional motives for authenticity. And I think that's what's behind a lot of this, is we don't talk about the real stuff. How many politicians, let's just say senators in Washington, we look at what their platform is. We look at what they say they want, and maybe we criticize that.
Right.
But do we really know what's behind it? Who are their constituencies? What relationships do they have that they're trying to honor? What promises do they make to people that they're trying to do good on?
Right.
That we don't know.
That's right.
And I think, I wrote an article a while back about the whole gun thing, and it's just like, it's not about the guns. It's about our desire to feel safe and to have freedom and to not have people tell us what to do. And it's not about you're taking this away, you're taking this away. It's like, why can't we just start talking about how do we want to feel with each other? What kind of relationships do we want to be in instead?
I think that's a perfect segue into our next topic. And I kept thinking about this in my abstract way. Thank you for giving me the go ahead to bring all this in, because a lot of people don't even want to touch the subject, which I think is half the problem, which is talking about politics in general and how we are almost in a position to hush because we don't know if we're going to be attacked. And you don't respect people enough to let them say what they have to say and be okay with that. Because you know what? I may be wrong 6 months from now in my thinking. Yeah. But we drill down these beliefs and we congregate with other people with these beliefs, and then we get lost in this tunnel of beliefs only right here.
Right.
And then there's a whole nother group. So when you're clicking on Facebook, so we're going into social media now, which is another topic I wanted to bang out with you, because
love it.
So much value with your teachings and the way you laid out conflict without casualties, to have healthy discussions. The medium is still new.
Right.
We're babies in this world. The professionals are still babies in this world, much less somebody that's just a consumer of the medium. Yeah. The Facebook and social media is the state of the internet today. That's it. It's just changing. We got to accept that and understand that's what's happening. Now, when you understand the algorithms, because we work with development projects and we understand day trading attention and how that works and how we position clients within these mediums and what mediums do what, it gets very specific. So when you're clicking on the red stuff and you're clicking on the blue stuff, and you keep clicking and you spend 2 or 3 hours here and 2 or 3 hours there, well, that medium wants everything. What it wants is to keep your attention. It's doing everything possible to align itself to where you're clicking to give you more of what you want to feed yourself. And our natural deals and grooves and everything that we're wired to, we get deeper and deeper, and those grooves are getting deeper, and we're clicking and we're reading these articles. So 2 months later, we've got 50, 60, 80 hours of this stuff. There's this other person that's been clicking over there.
Same thing.
And it's turmoil.
Opposite side.
It's crap. Some of these headliners, they don't even say what the article's about. It's just total craziness.
Yeah.
And so when you start learn to identify that, because one, we see the world, and Kevin sees the world as, we see the world as marketers, and we don't like that kind of play. We understand why companies do it. We understand the numbers they're trying to get their clients and the manipulation even on that level. But at the end of the day, they're playing off of people's fears and their anger and all the emotions. They're playing off of it, and they want to keep you going. So when my aunt, we'll use a personal example, she is one of the most amazing people that I've ever known. I love her like crazy. She does not, me and her do not agree on politics, but we're okay with that because she knows me and I know her, and I know her heart and she knows mine, and we can have fun with each other.
Right.
And we can't play on her thread, but we'll play on Messenger,
right,
because we both know each other well enough to just give each other stuff. But at the end of the day, we're okay with that. And she helps me see things differently, and I love her for that even more. And I think she understands that on my side, because we have come to recently to some conversations that end up healthy, but we can't do it on our feed. So point being is, guy over here, guy over there, individual over here, individual over there, gal, whatever, meet under this feed, and it becomes carnage.
Yeah.
And there's other people that get involved. And I know these people my whole life. They're my aunt's friends. They're her best friend from high school.
Good people.
And her best friend from work. And amazing individuals. Like, they're like my aunt.
Right.
They all kind of hang out together. They're beautiful people. They do so much for their communities and their families. But yet here in this interaction, they're just tearing into each other. It's ugly.
Yep.
It's hurtful. And I know if they would sit down with each other to have a margarita without any of that context, they could be best of friends.
Well, that big tunnel that they both were following was peddling justification. It was emphasizing how what makes us different makes the other person wrong. And so they've been led to believe some pretty specific things about the other person before they ever met.
Right.
And that's really sad.
Right.
Well, and really, hasn't this been going on since the dawn of time? I mean, social media is nothing more than a glamorous way of just sending the word out to your tribes or whatnot. So, you know, I see this since the dawn of time. You know, what tribe do we belong to? What religion do we belong to? What, you know, whatever we belong, we have to be this tribalistic type of society that we need to feel good about ourselves. That anything different than that, we either red or blue.
Well,
there's no middle.
No, and in one of the chapters of my book was I did it just for fun. I did it mostly for me, but it's gotten a lot more attention than I suspected, and it's about the rise and fall of civilizations and how drama plays into the fall of a civilization. Yeah. And I'm scared. I'm very hopeful about humanity and what we could do. Right. I'm scared because we're acting like civilizations before us acted right before they fell. And so the only difference this time is the capacity to destroy ourselves is way, way, way bigger. And we're messing with climate change at the same time. So the stakes are a lot higher than they've been before. But there's hope because all that energy of conflict could create, if we used it right, could create something amazing.
That's why I think it's more powerful than ever, Nate, that we do this and we talk to each other and we put that message out there that it's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
Social media is very dangerous. It's a part of that bigger system that we can destroy more than ever before, faster than ever before. I also believe it could be used in a way that can shape communities and get good messages out quite the same if we learn to control the media. Because of where we're at today, what we're doing today would have been 10 years ago, cost us millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And now me and you are sitting here talking to the world potentially, getting your message out, getting our message out, and just wanting to build community differently. And we can do it just like this. And that's powerful either which way we choose to use it. But I think our choice has been made for sure.
Yeah. And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So call me a cynic for asking this, but so how does this podcast not become part of the feed of somebody that is just looking for someone to agree with them? Because there's probably people out there that are like, oh yeah, that's right. Amen. Preach on, Andy. Of course, Nate. Of course, we got to be this. But I'm curious how many people within the first 5 minutes were like, oh, I'm not listening because that challenged me, or that called me on something, or it invited me to think differently. There is, I'm glad we're doing this, and I just want, we have to demonstrate that we can come together and do this stuff and put our differences, not just put them aside, but look at them and say, what can we create? What can we build together?
That's right.
Instead of tearing down.
Well, and I like that question. And that's why, unfortunately, I didn't get to, I sat down with one of the candidates that's out there. We didn't get to publish that. But I'd like to do it again. And I'd like to talk about the 70% until we build the relationship to where we're comfortable with each other enough to explore if that 30% is okay to talk about, and show how that process can be beneficial to both of us. I have a friend that I love dearly who ran for office. That's why I've been getting involved in understanding politics a little bit more recently. He just won his primary, and now he's doing. And so he had somebody show up that wouldn't. He's a Republican, and he had somebody show up to his event that showed up that probably it was a trans individual. And they had a great conversation. And it didn't start out to be that way, but because I know who he is and I knew that's what would end up happening, he didn't take the bait. He didn't go off kilter. He didn't think less of the individual because of they have different beliefs. He loved them through it. And now they're building a relationship and they're going to have more conversations. And that's the stuff right there. And I'd love to have both of them on here and talk about that situation. And I'm not afraid of that. See, a lot of people have to be careful because of what their networks would say or what their boss would say. And you know what? I don't care. You know, we're a board of...
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, we could do whatever we want.
Fire me, there's nobody to fire. You know what I'm saying?
There's a cool thing. If you haven't heard about this in Newton, there are some churches that are going through a project called the Neighboring Movement. And a friend of mine actually developed it. And the cool thing about it is the whole idea is, what if your neighbor is your actual neighbor? Like, I mean, really, not some religious metaphysical thing, but your neighbor is the guy right there next to you. And the whole thing is about, how do we look for strengths in other people? How do we not see people as broken or needy, or we have to go fix them, but seeing everybody has something to bring to make a crazy cool neighborhood? And then how do we act differently if we believe that everybody has something to offer, and we just build something with that? And so I'm really excited. That is a sign of hope for me. I think it's amazing.
That's huge.
And I hear leaders every day talking like this. There's a whole community of people out there that we're not afraid of conflict. We're just like, let's do something awesome with it.
Yeah, let's make it work for us, just like you're suggesting in your book, and just like you've articulated it on all those pages, and it's amazing. And if you haven't got the book, Conflict Without Casualties, I suggest you go out there and you get that. You can download it on Amazon, next-element.com. You can download it there. Bunch of great leadership information. You keynote speak, so you can get Nate, you can get him to keynote. There's a bunch of articles out there about how you open things up and how you set the tone for great meetings out there all across the country. And so thank you for being a resource for us and coming on. Thank you for being a leader, and thank you for teaching guys like me who want to become a better leader the things I need to look for and watch for along the way. And so I appreciate what you stand for and what you do, and I want to be a part of that. So Nate, thank you for coming on, and I hope we get to do this again in the near future.
Would love to. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Rock on, man. Keep changing the world, bro. Harvey County Digital, out.